Today we're talking about Sanborn fire insurance maps and how we can use them for genealogy. Now they're available at the Library of Congress, and here to tell us more about that is Julie Stoner. She's a reference specialist in the Geography and Map Division of the Library of Congress. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Happy to be here.
Very happy to have you here because we just love maps around here. And particularly, I just adore the Sanborn fire insurance maps because they give us such a unique perspective and view of our ancestors' world. So you're the expert. Start us off. What are Sanborn fire insurance maps?
Sure. So the Sanborn fire insurance maps are a uniform series of large-scale maps. They date starting from about 1867, though they mainly started in the 1880s, and they run mostly through the 1950s, though there are some of a later date as well. And it was a company that was started by a man named D.A. Sanborn, and he was drawing these maps at a building level to sell to fire insurance companies so that they could then assess how much to charge people for the fire risk of their building. And now, of course, we use them for a lot more things today than they were necessarily originally intended for. But because they show the building level details of a city. We have over 12,000 cities and towns represented. Some smaller towns may only have a few sheets, but the larger cities may have multiple volumes. And they would go back and create a new map every 10, 15 years or so. So you can really see how a city changed over time and the buildings that changed over time and how a neighborhood was built, basically. And they can be used for a variety of all sorts of things now.
Yeah, that's a great description. I love the fact that it has such detail. And these are really unique. There really aren't any other maps quite like these, are there?
It's true. We do have other maps like real estate atlases and things like that of maybe a few cities here and there, like DC or New York. We have land ownership atlases, but nothing of quite this scale or detail.
Fantastic. Well, let's talk about the scale of the map collection. You have, of course, at the Library of Congress, the entire map collection. Then there's the collection that we can access online. So tell us a little bit about what is the scope of it, and does it vary whether we're online or in person?
Sure. Yeah, it does vary a bit because of copyright restrictions. So, as I said, we have about 12,000 different cities and towns represented, and that equals over 700,000 map sheets. And so that's a lot of sheets of maps. And a few years ago, the library, in conjunction with a third party, took on a project to scan all of the public domain Sanborn maps. And public domain means that there are no copyright restrictions on those maps. So that included anything published before 1922 at that point, and then anything published before 1964 in which the copyright wasn't renewed. And so the library took on this project to scan all those, and so those are all scanned. Those are all online on our website and can be downloaded. That copyright date is now a rolling date, so there are now maps between 1923 and 1926 that are public domain that we haven't scanned yet, and we are working to get those scanned, to get those online. And as soon as new maps come into the public domain, we hope to have a process to then upload those when that happens. So a very large chunk of the Sanborn maps are online, but if they are not, you can always come and see them in person as well, because we do have the physical copies.
Oh, fantastic. Now, you mentioned that the part of the collection that is in the public domain is available online, and they're downloadable. Are those pretty high resolution maps? So we'll be able to use those in some of our own genealogy projects?
For sure. They are definitely high resolution. So the library scans them at the highest resolution that we can. And so there's actually a variety of files that you can download. So you have JPEG images, which are a bit lower, but are good for like maybe PowerPoints or computer screens. And then you have our TIFF files, which are the largest high-resolution files, which if you want to print it at size, you could do so using those TIFF files.
So I know that the online collection, which I think most of our folks would be interested in accessing from home easily, is at the Library of Congress, the loc.gov website. And I have here an address that says here /collection/Sanborn-maps. So tell us a little bit about what we'll find there on the website.
Sure. Actually, I can show that to you here on my screen if you like. So that link that you said is a landing page for our digital images. I did want to show you first this a research guide that we have that is about our fire insurance maps in general, not just the Sanborn, because there are a few other companies, though Sanborn took those over in time. They became pretty much the only one. But there's a large section right here on the left of the research guide that says Sanborn Fire Insurance Company Maps. And if you click on that, you will find a number of links to help you with your research of the Sanborn Fire Insurance Company maps. And I wanted to point out that to find the maps, the easiest way, under this Searching for Sanborn Maps tab, you will see some information, including a link to our Sanborn Fire Insurance Map checklist. And this is the easiest way to find the maps that you're looking for. So I'll click on that link and show you here our fire insurance map index. And this is the easiest way to search for maps. And I'm happy to show you if you like.
Yes, please, because I think that's one of the big challenges when they have a collection like this.
Yes. It's so large that it can be a little overwhelming. So this checklist is taken from a 1981 publication done by the library that lists all of the Sanborn maps that we have in our collection. Now, while the library has the largest collection of Sanborn maps in the world, we do not claim to have every one ever made. We are missing some, and so there are, if you say found one in your historical study that is not on this list, it just means that we don't have it in our physical collection, not that it doesn't exist. But you can search by state right here. So if you click on under U.S. state on the drop-down menu, you'll find all the states, and you can scroll through and pick your state. I live in Virginia. I was born here, so let's search for Virginia. And then you are going to see this list of hyperlinks with all of the cities available with Sanborn maps in the collections. So you can scroll through here and click on the city of interest. For example, if you want to click on Richmond, this is the list of Richmond maps here at the library. And it's a graph, or a table, sorry, as you can see. And over here on the far left, you will see the date of the volume, and then you will see the number of sheets in that volume. Other geographic areas included, sometimes in larger cities, the Sanborn Map Company would pick some areas farther outside the city to include in that volume a few sheets. So, for example, Manchester or South Richmond in this case. The comments is mostly about the physical binding of the maps here at the library. And then it has the website. So if you click on the link, it'll take you to the digital images. And just one other note about the date. If you look at the date, sometimes it can look a little confusing because you have two dates on here. So for example, volume 1, 1924 through April 1950. So what's happening here is that starting in mostly the 40s and 50s, the Sanborn Map Company decided it was faster, instead of making an entirely new map, to cut and paste over an old map. So this 1924 date is the base of the map, and then the 1950 date is the last time that they updated it. So it's really showing a 1950 era Richmond, but they're just using that base map of 1924. So if we click on the link, for example, to the 1886 Richmond maps, it'll take you here to the digital images. And then if we click on them, we were talking about downloading them. So let me just show you really quick. If you click on an image, you will see in the center of the screen the map that you can scroll in and out of. And then at the bottom underneath, you will see this download link right here. And you can see that there are several JPEG images, a GIF file, and then the high resolution TIFF that you can then download to your computer and use.
Boy, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty great. We're very happy that a lot of these are now online for researchers to use from outside of Washington, D.C.
Now, when you look at these maps, there's a lot of detail, there's color coding, there's all kinds of markings on these. Do you have resources on the website to help people interpret the map?
Sure, we do. The best method first is to look at the first page of a volume. And if you look and scroll in, you will see that there is a map key. There's a box on the top of the, either usually on the top or the bottom of the sheet, that is going to show you what the colors and the symbols in each volume means. Different cities have different unique characteristics, and the Sanborn Map Company would map those. And so not every map is going to have every symbol. And so the key at the front is a really good way to see what's specifically in that volume. So for example, pink typically means brick. Yellow typically means it was made out of frame or wood. Green can change depending on, sometimes I've seen it as cement. I've seen it as special. I'm not exactly sure sometimes what that means. So the colors indicate the type of material it was built out of, and then you will see what the hash marks or the circles or the X's mean in various buildings. And there's a lot of abbreviations that the Sanborn Map Company uses as well. D typically stands for dwelling, S for store. If you want to see an entire list of the symbols, we have a great resource back on our research guide. So if you go back to the research guide, two things to note. There's an Interpreting Sanborn Maps on the left section here, and that's going to tell you a lot more about the colors, the symbols, things like that. And then if you go to the internet resources, under websites, there's a list created by Environmental Data Resources, who are the copyright holders of the Sanborn maps. And they've created this great PDF that shows the most common abbreviations and symbols used in the Sanborn fire insurance maps, and it's pretty comprehensive. So you can scroll through and look at those here.
Boy, that's a fantastic resource.
Yes. And that's, again, it's linked on the research guide.
If we do the search and we don't see the town that we have in mind in that list, is there another way or any other way to kind of search to figure out, is it part of a bigger map? Perhaps we're just thinking of too small of a town.
That's great. That's a great question. So if it's a really small town and you don't see it on the list, the other thing you can do is search here back on the index page, the main index page, under the full text field. So for example, there might be a few sheets of a smaller town on a bigger city, right? You can search for that full text field right here and search all full text fields, and that'll search that other geographic location that we saw, like in Richmond. So say if we typed in Manchester and we did a search for that, and you would see that it's here as well under Richmond, as well as its own city. And so you can see that maybe it had earlier sheets here in Richmond. If you don't find it in the search, and you don't find it in the search fields, and then if you don't find it in the list, then it's likely that one was not made of that town, unfortunately. And that does happen. A lot of small cities and towns, or a lot of towns, just don't have them sometimes.
Well, that brings up another question is, Julie, are these always sorted by town or city, or might we even see a county or even some other kind of regional area described in a map?
Sure. That's a great question. You do sometimes see counties. I can think of an example off the top of my head. If you go to California, for example, and you scroll down to Los Angeles, you're going to see here that you have the city of Los Angeles, but then you also have Los Angeles County. And so that's going to cover some of the county areas that are outside of the city itself. Typically, they're covering things like factories or industrial areas, or things of that nature, but you never quite know. Another example would be in New Jersey. If you go to New Jersey and we scroll down to let me try to remember. New Jersey coast, for example, which includes several different seaside towns. So this would be an example of maybe when you would want to do the full text search if you didn't find it in the list. For example, Long Branch, Monmouth Beach are all in these volumes right here that are kind of scattered down the coast. So there are some. I like to say that for every rule for Sanborn maps, there's an exception. There's an exception to every Sanborn rule. Yeah.
I was just saying the same idea that, boy, it'd be worth perusing that list just to see what other gems are out there, or maybe very close by areas that would be worth taking a look, even if we do find our city listed or in a
Yeah.
search.
Right. In the search, it's also, you can search by county. So you can search by county if you wanted to find all the cities within a certain county. So, like, if you wanted to search for anything in York County, Maine, you would then be able to see all the cities here that are within York County, Maine. Something like that. So there's always something new to find in Sanborn maps. I've been studying these maps for a long time, and I'm always learning new things. People are always giving me new information that I didn't know before. So it's fun.
Now, I can imagine there was a lot of effort that went into the indexing part of this, just getting all of these cities and counties and everything listed. Was that work that you had to do, or was that given to you by the company who now owns the copyright on Sanborn? And does it include anything besides a geographic place, such as all the saloons, any map with a saloon, or any map with a particular type of feature?
That would be pretty amazing. Unfortunately, no, we don't have anything that like would list every saloon ever found. Though if somebody wanted to do that project and send it to us, we'd be happy to take that. So this list that was created by the Library of Congress in 1981, and then we've added to it as we've gained new material. So the library is still, we're always looking for Sanborn maps that we don't have in our collection. And when we find them, we do try and acquire them and then add them to our index. So this particular list was created by staff at the library in 1981.
Excellent. Well, you know what made me think of that question was I know that the David Rumsey collection out at Stanford, they are now working with and experimenting with this OCR to pull that other kinds of text off these maps. I mean, so it's amazing to see what technology might be able to do for us in the future.
It's amazing what technology could do. And you're right. There is a grant project going on right now called Maps, Machine Reading Maps, that is experimenting with pulling the text out of the Sanborn maps to then create new products out of that. We also, here at the library, have a new GIS project, if you would like to hear about that.
Yes, please.
So GIS is geographic information systems. It's basically putting information on a map so that you can see it and comprehend it at a glance. So one of the problems that we were having with our Sanborn maps, especially for our very large cities, like New York, LA, Chicago, is that there are so many volumes covering that city, and people would want to know where their exact address was. So you want to know where your address is, and there's 78 volumes of New York City. Like, which volume is it in, right? And so we've created what we're calling the Sanborn Atlas Volume Finder, which you can find the link again here on our resource guide. So on the left, under Sanborn Atlas Volume Finder, you'll find the link. And this, if you click on it, you will see a map of the country, and it's going to pinpoint our current volume finders, and we're going to be hopefully making more as we go. But basically, the first map is an index of what we have. So right now, we just have Los Angeles, Chicago, and Detroit out, and we're working on getting Washington, D.C. and New York City out. But say, for example, you're interested in a map of Detroit, or an address in Detroit. If you click on Detroit on the pink pin, you can then click on the Sanborn Volume Finder for that, and that's going to take you to the Detroit map. And it's going to show you exactly what areas are covered in Detroit. Well, first it's going to give you a little information about it. And then if you click on I'm ready, it's going to show you the extent of the Sanborn maps for the different years that it was mapped in Detroit. So for example, this is showing you all the years. If you look on the left, you'll see the legend. And this is a range of years for each basically set of maps that was created. So 1884 to 1896 and then 1897 to 1909. You can click the years on and off. So, for example, if you just wanted to know the earliest maps of Detroit, this is, and you scroll in, you can see this is where it was mapped. And you can enter an address up here on the right, and that's going to pinpoint for you the address. And then when you click on it, it'll tell you, for example, that this map is available in volume 2 from 1884, and then it's going to give you a link, and that'll take you to the digital images. So that you don't have to guess which volume your address is in anymore. So, for example, if we go to the 1949 to 1951 extent, you can see it's a lot larger of an area. And if you click on the map, it'll show you what volume that is in, and it'll tell you whether it has digital images or it does not. In this case, this map is not available online, and you can contact us to learn more about it.
What an amazing tool. I mean, that's exciting to think that will continue to expand, particularly for these really big cities where, like you said, it's like a needle in a haystack sometimes with the addresses.
Right. I mean, this is volume 24 here on Detroit that I'm showing you right now. Like there's a lot of volumes for some of these cities, and it can be really difficult without, expert knowledge how to find your address. So we feel like this is really going to help researchers in diving deeper into the Sanborn maps and really finding what they're looking for.
Well, now you mentioned that sometimes you're going to see that it is not available online. As you said, there might be a copyright issue or something else. Explain to us a little bit about what are some of our options as far as getting access to a map that might be in person? How might we go about the in-person visit, but also maybe making a request online to somehow get a copy?
So it's our geography map division policy that we will not scan or send items that are possibly under copyright protection. And with the Sanborn maps, if they were renewed or after 1964, then they are copyrighted. And so we can't send those electronically to you. You are welcome to make an in-person visit to the reading room. We're open Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 5, and we will pull out anything you want to see. Another option is that these volumes have all been scanned in black and white by ProQuest, and there's a subscription database that has them all in black and white. And a lot of universities or public libraries will subscribe to that database, so you could go to your public library, see if they subscribe to that ProQuest database, and see them there, and you can download them that way. Those are in black and white, so that's a little bit not as helpful sometimes if you're looking for like building construction, things like that. There is also, back on our research guide, under Internet Resources on the left, a link called the Union List of Sanborn Maps, and this was a list compiled by Berkeley of other institutions that have Sanborn maps, other than the Library of Congress. Mm-hmm. So if, for example, you are in California and you can't make it to the library, you can see if your town, so for example, if you click on Los Angeles, you can see Volume 1 of Los Angeles, these other institutions, for example, University of California, Berkeley, University of California, Los Angeles, also have those physical copies that you could go to that institution to see.
Oh, we are talking to the right person to find out all these different gems on the website, because that too is really terrific. Now, I'm familiar with the ProQuest. Do you happen to know, is there one place where you can look up and see which libraries subscribe to ProQuest, or is that just too much to ask?
I think you would have to do that individually by library. I don't think I've never seen a master list, but I find that librarians are usually very helpful people. So if you called your local library or university library, I'm sure the librarians there could tell you.
Help you track it down. Good point.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking also about the fact that you are so interested in other entities saying, hey, we have a map perhaps that you don't have at the Library of Congress, and doing that acquisition. Tell us a little bit about, is this indeed a growing database, and do you continue to get both stuff that can go online as well as stuff that will just be available in person?
Yeah, so I mean, we are always looking for maps that we don't have here in our collection. Usually most of those are going to be more recent, so like 1950s, 60s, 70s maps. The library gained most of our early collection from copyright deposit, and so it used to be that you had to send in a physical copy of something to get it copyrighted, and that's how our collection was built, the Sanborn Map collection. So we are still always looking for new updated ones that we don't have. And it is a growing collection. I wouldn't say that we're receiving, them every day or anything, but when we do find them, we do like to acquire them. And we do hope, again, to put ones that come out of copyright on that rolling basis online.
Wonderful. Well, before I let you go, I mean, you are the guru when it comes to the Sanborn fire insurance maps and these collections over at the Library of Congress. Anything else that we should really know about or look for as we're working with these?
That's a good question. First, I want to say that we always welcome questions to our division. So it's called Ask a Librarian. Here on the left of the research guide or on our main Library of Congress homepage, there's a link that says Ask a Librarian. And you're welcome to send us in any questions that you have that we haven't answered on our research guide or that you're confused about. We're always happy to answer questions. The Sanborn maps are a fantastic resource for doing genealogy, for finding out more about the town you lived in and the buildings that were there, the types of buildings. A lot of the buildings will say like what was in them. For example, like this was a candy shop or a hat shop or whatnot. And so they're a great resource to just find out more about your town. And there's always more to learn about them. I'm still learning about things that I didn't know about Sanborn maps years later. So,
well, Julie, thank you so much for coming and sharing this terrific collection. Again, giving us such a unique view of the places where our ancestors may have lived. And I'm sure you'll be getting many inquiries through Ask the Librarian because, that's really the best way to find out what's available. And I think people oftentimes are timid, but you really encourage that, don't you, for people to reach out to the library?
Just dive in, yeah.
Yeah.
And reach out, yeah. Dive in, reach out. We're here to help.
Well, fantastic. Julie Stoner, thank you so much for joining us here today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Lisa.